Well, what a beautiful day for a trike ride, huh? Well, I was thinking last night about some of the big rainbow trout I caught in my life. You know, I've caught big ones in Mount Rainier National Park, about 20 inches long. Down in Central Oregon on the Fall River, I caught some rainbows about 20 inches long, and still the best fishing I ever had was up in Bristol Bay, not Bristol Bay, but up in Mat-Su Valley. So I think what I'll do is I dug around and I found a bunch of my old pictures. So I guess it's time to ride the trike a little bit today and to tell you a little bit about some rainbow trout up to 30 inches long. So stay with me. Let's see what we can find today. The trike's working pretty good. I've had it almost a year and I'm going to do a review here of it, but I'm starting to lose the use of my hand here a little bit, so it breaks, and here's where the little throttle is and stuff, and oh, it's really getting rough on my hands. So someday I suppose I'll have to give up this trike and get one of them motorized wheelchairs, I suppose. Well, till then we'll just keep her working. Yeah, sure nice day to be out. Well, my story starts back in about 1999, year 2000. Back when I was living in, Piggy and I had a place in Wasilla. About the same time that Sarah Palin was the mayor of Wasilla. And she used to be all painted prettied up, and she did look good. Anyway, that's where the name Caribou Barbie came from. So the name for Sarah Palin in Alaska was Caribou Barbie because she spruced herself up so much. Anyway, she was mayor of Wasilla while we lived there. We lived on the hill up on a little street called Lone Cub, and had a big backyard. It was about an acre of land covered with birch trees, and green belt all around. It was a little cul-de-sac. There's about 8 of us up there, and it was moose range. We had moose around the house year round, and in the summertime, in the wintertime when it got really cold and snowy, the moose used to lay at the bottom of our right at the bottom of our deck by our back door. About, from the sliding glass door, it was only about 8 feet. And the moose used to lay there because that's where the dryer vent came out. So when moose got warmed up out there, we'd have 2-3 moose at a time in the backyard sunbathing by our dryer vent. We had a big old furry cat too that liked to get up every morning and go outside, and he'd walk up the road up to our neighbor's house, and he would tease. It was a she, I guess, but she teased the dog because I knew the dog was on a big chain, and every day he'd go up there and sit and tease that dog, and the dog would be on the end of the chain barking, having a heck of a time. Then one afternoon I went up there and the dog wasn't on the chain, and you should have seen that cat take off. Climbed the biggest birch tree in our yard. You guess what? It never went up there and teased that dog again. Anyway. Oh look, first signs of spring up here. Skunk cabbage starting to come up. When I got to Mat-Su Valley, I did everything what everybody else did. You get your salmon gear and you go fish the Susitna River or the little Susitna or one of the other streams up there, and what you end up doing is you're fishing for king salmon when they come up in May and June. And I used to fly fish for them up there. But that's how I got started fishing. In that area, I just didn't know it, so I just did what everybody else did. I went down to the main rivers and decided to do a little bit of king salmon fishing. Well, like I was saying, I didn't know much about the fishing in the area, and I'm not much of a kayak cast for salmon, you know, with lures and pixies and big spinners and gear. And I thought, what the heck, I'll fly fish. So I got my 8-weight fly rod out, and hooked it all up for king salmon. And, you know, salmon are going to be running between 20 and 40 pounds up there in the river. I designed some nice big flies and stuff, and I went down to the spot where everybody fished. There's long lines of people about elbows apart, you know. That ain't for me. So I walked up the riverways and then cut up this creek up here. Later found out it was Willow Creek. So I went up the creek a ways. There was a few bear track and a few other things around. No people, you know. I know, that's okay. Then I realized, oh, okay, you can't keep salmon up here. But I go keep them anyway. So I went out there and started fly fishing, you know. Laid that big old fly down, and all of a sudden the pole just went like that. You lift up, and all of a sudden you got this big king salmon on. And it was kind of like a big tug of war. I pull a little bit, he'd pull a little bit. I pull a little bit, he'd pull a little bit. This went on about 40 minutes. Just a big tug of war. So I finally got it landed, took the fly out, and run him back out in the water, and stepped out there again, laid it out. That fly just hit perfectly in the water, started to drop down a little bit, and all of a sudden my rod went, there's another one. Big tug of war going on. Another 30, 40 minutes, I finally got that one landed. I said, good grief. I says, can't I make a cast without hooking a salmon? So anyway, I got out there. I went to another spot. I didn't see salmon around, you know, but there might be some in there. Laid it down there, stripped a little bit. The battle was on again. Bought that big salmon, big king, got him up on the shore there, took the hook out and pushed him back out. Tell you the truth, I got pretty damn bored with it. Yeah, it didn't take me long to get bored with those king salmon. Oh man, that's good coffee. So I thought to myself, well, I'll try trout fishing somewhere, and I didn't know where to go. So I talked to a guy that fished they call them the ponds, all the little lakes in the Matsu Valley up there. He said, yeah, good rainbow fishing. I said, okay. But I had to get a float tube. Now, if you know anything about a float tube, first thing you put on is your waders, and then you put your fins on, and then you climb into your float tube, and you can't go forward, so you got to back into the water, and pretty soon you're floating. Extremely comfortable. It's like fishing out of your couch at home. Only one problem. It seemed like every time I got all set, ready to go, I had to go to the bathroom. Take it all off, go back in the woods, take a leak, come back out, put it all back on again. Kind of a pain in the butt. Anyway, there's hardly anybody fishing. I never saw a person in the lake I was fishing in. I think it was called Long Lake. Anyway, I was out there and I was fishing with these tied leech fly. So I tied a little leech fly like he told me to do and took it out there. Cast it out, creeping in there. Boom! Oh boy! Every 2, 3 or 4 casts, I was getting a rainbow 12 to 16 inches long. Just beauties. Fighting them. So I fished it for a couple of times until all of a sudden I picked up a friend. And it was a big loon. And that crazy loon saw me coming. And I'd paddle out in the lake and he'd paddle out right next to me. I'm not kidding you. I'm sitting in my float tube, and as far as I could reach with my hand over, you know, I could have pat that loon on the head. And the thing that amazes me about it was that it's so pretty. The eyes are kind of a purplish, dark blue color. Really neat, kind of, and off red. It's hard to describe the color of their eyes. But anyway, it'd sit there right next to me. And I'd cast out there and set the hook, and I'd have a fish. As soon as I set that hook, that loon dove down into the water. And I looked down, and he's chasing my fish. I got the fish on the line, swimming all over the place. And I got a loon chasing the fish. Well, pretty soon the loon will get the fish off the hook, and Then we start all over again. I set the hook and down goes the loon. Well, I figured I was on catch and release, but I wasn't going to feed this loon all the time. So anyway, I fished that lake up there probably 4 or 5 times early in the spring, right after the ice was out, you know. I really enjoyed it. It was kind of a fun fishing thing to do, float tube. Yeah, so anyway, I got a little bored fishing that way too with the loon and stuff. And I still wanted to fish streams, and I didn't know where to go, so I went back to the stream that I had caught the salmon in. And I went up the river. There's a little road up it. I went up the river as far as I could. Realized that it moved away from the stream, so I dropped back down and decided to start fishing. And my gosh, my first cast in that little stream, I was using just a little piece of orange and green yarn, you know, imitation of salmon egg or something. And oh my gosh, something grabbed hold of it and took off, and I fought it for a long time, and I ran and jumped, and it was a great big rainbow about 22 inches long. And I thought, wow, this is pretty impressive. And then I made another cast and hooked into another one, and then another one. And all along there for about 100 yards, I must have caught and released about 10 rainbow from about 15 to 25 inches long. And I thought to myself, my gosh, I have found paradise. Yeah, I was having a real ball catching those big rainbows. And I got thinking, man, these things are as big as steelhead. It reminded me of the days that we used to fish the Toutle River for steelhead before Mount St. Helens blew up. Because the stream I was fishing was very similar in size as the North Fork of the Toutle River. So I thought to myself, I better call my dad. I called my dad and I says, that's some good rainbow fishing up here. They're big as steelhead. Fight. Man, they even fight twice as much, some of them. They get way out there and tearing up down the river. I said, and there's lots of them and there's nobody fishing for them. So he says, okay, I'll fly up. So, a few days later, he shows up, you know. And at the time, my dad was about the same age as I am now, mid-70s. And so I took him out there to where we were fishing, which is Willow Creek. And he looked at it, oh, no, great, we got our waders on, whatever. And I had fished it a few more times, and I'd done pretty good with little pieces of orange and green yarn like we used to do for steelhead. But one of the best things I found is one of those little translucent beads they use for lures. Line goes through it, it's like a single egg, and you can almost look through it. They just went nuts for that thing. So I got him out there, and I said, cast on out there. Cast on out there, and he set the hook, and that thing went flying down the river, and he's running after it. And it's super like this and that. It was hilarious. Watch it. Finally, he landed it. It was about 20, 21 inches long, and he's looking at a big fat rainbow. He says, oh my gosh, I thought you were joking. I was expecting, 10, maybe 15, 16 inches. No. But anyway, we fished there together for 3 or 4 days while he was there. We caught and released probably 8 or 10 big rainbow each per day. The largest I ever caught was this one here, 30 inches long. I figure it weighed about 9-10 pounds. It was just so big and fat. It was just incredible. I mean, we hooked fish after fish and caught them and released them. It was the most spectacular rainbow trout fishing you could ever imagine. And to have that whole place for ourselves, and I could drive there every day. It was right off the road system. I don't think we had to walk more than a couple hundred feet to get the creek. Now, we also caught a few really nice grayling. And they're real pretty fish in the sunlight. Their skin and so forth is kind of translucent, multicolored, got the little fins on them. They're real pretty fish. We caught, I don't know, I think we probably, maybe 1 out of 10 fish were grayling. And the rest were all those great big rainbows. And I fished probably maybe a mile of Willow Creek is all during that summer. Now, those rainbows, they would follow the salmon up, feed on the salmon eggs when the salmon were spawning, and then they would, the bigger ones that were going to spawn would go on up the creek and spawn. And then they come back out, and what they do is they would drop back down into the Susitna River, which is a very big river with great big deep holes in it. And what they figured, they didn't go to the ocean. What they figured happens is that these big rainbows will drop down into the big deep pools of the Susitna. And in the wintertime, the Susitna would freeze over. So those big trout were living in the big holes in the Susitna River, and they figured they were feeding on either eggs washing down, or they checked a number of them and found out that they were actually eating salmon flesh. So when pieces of salmon were rotting and falling into the river and washing down, these big rainbows were cannibalizing on them. Anyway, they got really big. I think 30 inches is the largest I'd ever heard taken out of that creek. But some of the other creeks, I guess they get quite a bit larger, the rainbows. Now, whether that fishing exists anymore or not, I'm not sure. When I fished it, like I said, I fished whole summer, probably from May through into October. And I think the most people I ever saw, I saw altogether, I don't think I saw more than 5 people. Maybe 6 on that stream fishing. And most of those, you know, were catch and release for salmon or whatever, but the rainbow fishing was catch and release at the time. I have no idea what the regulations are. I have no idea if those fish are still there in the abundance they were, or whether or not a lot of people have found them. Now, I do know up the river farther, there's the little Susitna River, and then there's the, another little creek up there. It might be called Montana Creek, I think. But I understand that those little small creeks too, which they aren't really small, but they have nice big rainbow trout in them too. You can tell, you know, by these pictures I've got here, not only the size of the rainbows, but the quality of fish. They're extremely deep-bodied, thick, little heads, big bodies. They were incredible fish, and boy did they fight and love to jump. That was probably the most fun rainbow trout fishing I ever had in my life. I can't even think anything that came close to what that was. Later that year in February, I got offered a job back down in Sitka, and so we left that February, I think it was the year 2000, and then moved back here to Sitka. At which time I drove down the Alcan Highway in February with 50 below zero, and put the TV and a few things and whatever I could in the back of a Chevy S10 with a little canopy over the top. But anyway, I came all the way down the Alcan by myself, hardly saw a vehicle on the road, and it's 50 below. It was so cold I had a heater blanket put on me and plugged into the cigarette lighter, and it was still cold in that truck. Anyway, I have quite a story about that trip. That's for another time. And of course, Piggy, she flew down to Sitka about a couple weeks later after I found a place to rent and got established and everything. But as far as rainbow trout, I mean, this is incredible, this fishing. I couldn't believe I could have such good fishing that close to the house. It was only about a 30-minute drive, up a main highway, turn off, and drive a couple miles. You know, in 30 minutes, I was there fishing. There were a lot of times I fished every weekend. Every time I got a chance, I went up there and catching those big rainbows. And there were a lot of days, you know, Davey, he calls in from work. Hey, man, I got a headache. I feel crappy, whatever. I can't show up at work for today. And, oh, great, have a great fishing trip, you know. Or I could just leave work at 5 o'clock, because like in July and August, I'd be there fishing 30 minutes, and I could fish until 11 o'clock at night before it got, you know, too dark to move around or anything. So it's pretty interesting trips up in there. I always wanted to go back and see how the fishing is today. But these are some of the most beautiful rainbow trout I have ever seen in my life. Oh, look at that bridge. Oh, boy. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little trike ride here in Sitka, riding my Addmotor trike, and enjoyed my story about rainbow trout fishing. Like I said, if you're a fisherman and you get up that way, try her out, see what you think of it. There's Willow Creek. I'm not afraid to tell people where it's at. I'll probably never go there again, but I got some great pictures and great memories of some pretty great trout fishing. Well, I'll have another story for you maybe in a few days. We'll see. Gonna have a couple nice days of weather, and the herring are coming into Sitka Sound, so a lot of stuff going on right now. So have a good day, and enjoy my videos. Catch you later.